Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, December the 19th, or 9th rather, 5:29 p.m. and I'm going to call the regular meeting for Lacombe City Council to order. Everybody's had an opportunity to review the agendas. Is there anything with respect to the consent agenda? Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I was wondering if we could pull off reallocation of grant funding, because I just would like to hear the full explanation about that.
Thank you.
Off the consent agenda. I didn't say that completely.
Yep. Any other items anyone has? Councillor Dallas.
A motion to accept the consent agenda as presented, or as amended.
Very good. One last opportunity. Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimous. For the overall agenda, CAO Gowdy. Jump on the gun. Very good. The overall agenda. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I move that we accept the overall agenda as amended, right? Because we're adding that one item.
I don't see any other lights on, so please go ahead and vote on the overall agenda. That is unanimously in favor as well. So first item then, with respect to the reallocation of grant funding for the fire engine, Councillor Hoekstra, was there some items in particular, or do you?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Well, I just wanted to hear it presented as a request for decision so that I understood it for sure correctly. Nothing in particular. Thank you.
Looking at a farmer director here to see what the scoop was, but CAO Gowdy, go ahead.
So what we're proposing here is two things. One is that we want your endorsement of an application for the local growth and sustainability grant to fund the fire engine. That's required in the grant application. So we just want to get that on the box. Separately, it's a reallocation of funding, which normally we actually don't talk about with you about. So Manager McKinnon and I go through the funding and look at what programs, what grant programs, and what available debt servicing and what available reserves we have for any given project. And then that's what we put forward to council in the budget. And so if you look in your capital budget, it has the funding identified for each project. And we might switch between one provincial grant and another without coming here and telling you, you'd be constantly hearing about little reallocations. In this case, because the project was over budget, we had come to council, if you recall, and said, hey, the truck's costing more. Here's how we propose to fund the more. And so we were really specific about it, down to the 223,942 from the fire shared equipment reserve and so on. We gave like very specific, here's how we're funding it. And we also passed borrowing bylaws in support of debt funding this equipment. And so out of an abundance of wanting to make sure you're aware of things that go on, rather than just make that reallocation as we do and would with other projects for which we haven't gotten a specific motion from you about where it's coming from. We included that here as well.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I guess, Mike, I was tripped up by the reallocation, but then we're applying, we were really, the motion is about supporting the application. So normally that grant would have been allocated to something else, you're saying then? Ish?
No, that grant is actually something new that it just came out 2 months ago, maybe a month even ago. And so when we originally proposed to you how we were going to pay for the project, it wasn't an option. So that gets that on the books, but we were bringing this memo just for information without that motion already because of this potential reallocation. And so we combined the two.
So one item that I wanted to bring up, in our request for council decision here, quite often we're provided an analysis in the opening sentence here. The city of Lacombe secured borrowing bylaws for $1 million to fund the purchase of the fire engine and $2 million to fund the new ladder truck, ensuring adequate emergency response capabilities. For me, that's a little misleading to the communities to suggest that somehow we do not have adequate equipment currently, which in fact we do. And by spending this money, one could argue we're not any better equipped. We have newer equipment. But I think the driving factor with this is this aged out equipment, which we are more or less forced to purchase because of the overall implications of insurance for all members of the community if we fall below a certain threshold with those critical pieces of emergency gear. Is that a fair assessment, Theo Gowdy?
Yes, sorry, I didn't understand earlier when we were chatting just before the meeting, or I would have mentioned that. Yes. So certainly we currently have adequate fire response capability, and we're replacing the existing equipment with a like for like fire truck replacement. However, there's a 20-year horizon whereafter your insurance rating does not consider the equipment to be current and valid. And so to maintain that response capacity in the insurer's estimation, that's a 20-year window, and that's what's happening with this equipment.
Right. And yeah, and I'm certainly not denying that in any way that exists. I personally think it's a little aggressive for the mileage and hours that some of this equipment uses. It's we're basically forced to either part with some very good equipment under the guise of providing a better service. And I'm just not totally sure that that's true. However, there are rules that we have to play by. I get that. I just think that it's important for the public to understand that council doesn't go about making these multi-million decisions to purchase equipment flippantly because they want some shiny new trucks. We are more or less forced to do these purchases on a regular basis. I'm just saying on a far more regular basis than what any other business certainly would, in my opinion. So enough said about that from my seat, but I just want that to be known in the public sphere that there are reasons for purchasing other than council choosing to part with your hard-earned tax dollars. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, McCreasy. I will make that motion since I pulled this out. That council supports the application for the local growth and sustainability grant to assist in funding the new fire engine.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously in favor. Thanks, everyone. We have no open forum this evening. However, we do have a presentation, Director Thompson, an overview for the North Red Deer River Water Services Commission. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, I'm pleased to be here today to talk about the North Red Deer River Water Services Commission. And because that just rolls off the tongue, we chose the acronym NRDRWSC. So this, my name is Jordan. You guys already know me. I've been with the city for 12 plus years. I've also been the CAO of the Water Commission for over 5 years and a sister commission to it, the Wastewater Commission, for 4 years. Today I'm going to talk about an overview of the River Water Services Commission, reintroduce it to the community, talk about some community statistics specific to Lacombe, dive a little bit into the financials of the commission, and highlight a project that's on the horizon for it, an extension of the system north of Ponoka to the Arminskin Cree Nation initially. So the North Red Deer River Water Services Commission is a 50-kilometer water transmission main that brings water from Red Deer to the member communities of the commission, and they currently include the town of Ponoka, city of Lacombe, town of Blackfalds, Lacombe County, and Ponoka County. And it first began supplying operations in 2006, and today supplies nearly 3 million cubic meters of water annually, drinking water annually. The commission started its initial formation in the early 2000s through a number of pre-commission studies, 2001, 2003. In 2002, the province approved an interbasin transfer, and that allowed for water to be taken from the South Saskatchewan River Basin via the Red Deer River and deposited into the North Saskatchewan River Basin, or the Battle River Basin, because at the time, Lacombe and Ponoka had lagoon systems that discharged their effluent into the North Basin, and so that requires provincial approval to do that. And so that was a key milestone in the commission's formation. In 2004, the commission regulation was approved by the province, and then a supply agreement with the city of Red Deer was executed. In 2006, water on for all the communities, and so that's really the nuts and bolts of the commission so far. And since 2006, it's been supplying water, potable water from the city of Red Deer to the members every single year. You'll see there's a little bit more to the story, which I'll go over in a little bit later in the slide presentation here. This is a schematic of the overall system, and so the part within the blue box is the commission's. When I talk about the commission is what I mean by it, but it gets water from the city of Red Deer, and Red Deer gets its water from the Red Deer River. The commission has a license to divert up to 13.4 million cubic meters of water from that river annually. Currently, we don't utilize anywhere near that, and we'll go over that in a second. But certainly, we have more than enough capacity in our license to supply the members' needs for the foreseeable future. But the important thing here is to recognize that the commission brings water up to and including each of the current member reservoirs. So it actually takes the water from its transmission main, distributes it right into each of the members' reservoir, and then the members themselves, the city of Lacombe, for example, owns those reservoirs and then manages the distribution system downstream. And so the commission fills the reservoir and the members take it over from there. And so we have we fill 2 reservoirs in Blackfalds, 3 in Lacombe, 3 in Ponoka, and 1 in Lacombe, or Ponoka County. So that previous slide showed some nice straight lines on what the schematic of the system looks like. In reality, the pipeline itself from Red Deer up to Ponoka is, you can see, very, very jagged. And as the line was built and the design was implemented, there was various factors from topography to landowner constraints to utilities that may cause the alignment to move around as it makes its way north. And certainly that's going to be the case when we extend the line north as well. For the city of Lacombe, in terms of water consumption, council's a little more aware of some of these numbers because we reported the water audit for 2023. But I think this will be the next few slides will be important to kind of put where Lacombe sits in terms of its water consumption in context of the region and other commission members. And so this is a graph showing we call it the gross water consumption of the city of Lacombe over since 2010. And so what that means is just strictly how much water the commission supplying the city as a whole. We use a unit called liters per capita or liters per person per day. That does not mean individual people are consuming that. That's just a way to compare water consumption from community to community based on their population. And so in 2023, Lacombe's liters per capita per day were 245. We know that breaks down into about 150 liters per capita per day per person. And then in the industrial, commercial, institutional sector, it's about 95 liters per capita per day. And as we move forward into 2024, we're projecting by the year end will be lower than that number as well. So on a kind of consistent downward trend for quite some time. Compared to the rest of the commission, the blue line is the commission average. And so Lacombe is right in line with the commission average today. Typically, it's been above the commission's average. Being an older community, and a community with more industrial and commercial use than the other members, that kind of pulls the consumption per capita up compared to the average. But you can look at communities such as Black Falls, which is the dashed line underneath. They're typically lower than the average. And then Ponoka is kind of right between Lacombe and the commission average over time. And so moving into 2024, Lacombe and the commission average is identical in terms of liters per capita per day consumption. If we look to our neighbors to the south and Alberta overall, the city of Red Deer publishes their water consumption today and then their future targets. So in 2023, they published their gross water consumption is 293 liters per capita per day. And then some work from the city of Lethbridge shows the Alberta average consumption at 330 liters per capita per day as well. And so I just want to stress as well, this Red Deer has about 293. They also have a more industrial and commercial usage that pulls that number up as well. That may not be the only factor, but that certainly is one of the major drivers for higher consumption, just to put us in context of the region. So this is a very number heavy slide. What it shows, or what I want to show here, is that on the very right column, that 2045 volume as a percent of bylaw 1, what that's showing is how much capacity. So each member has a certain volume capacity or allocation in the pipeline, in the system. And by 2045, when we project out how much consumption each member, including the city of Lacombe, is going to use, how much of their capacity that they've bought into from the initial onset of the system are they going to be using? And so for the city of Lacombe by 2045, we're projecting about 37.7% of that overall capacity. Town of Ponoka, 40.8%. Black Falls has grown more than they anticipated, so they're going to be around 67.5%. Lacombe County has a major facility, the milk processing plant, that requires significant water draw as well, so they're higher at 62%. And Ponoka County has a small allocation at 2.2% in 2045. And so what this really shows is for a long time, the commission's licenses as well, we're well positioned for growth, and that the water supply capacity based on the current commission license is not going to be the bottleneck for growth for us in the region from a capacity point of view. The line below, when we look at Nemaska Chiefs First Nations and Ermineskin, there are 4 First Nation communities within Ermineskin. We've just listed Ermineskin as being the next to likely to connect. They have an allocation within the original system of 890,000 cubic meters. When they come online, they'll buy that capacity off off the commission, and they'll have access to that volume as well. And that will that's already accounted for in the commission's long-term license. A little bit about our rates and fees. So the bulk of the commission's budget is driven by the City of Red Deer regional rate. The City of Red Deer determines the rate for the commission and the rest of the regional partners that they supply. And so for 2025, their rate is $1.92 per cubic meter. We typically get that rate by the end of November. This year it was a little bit earlier, but typically it's closer to the end of November. The commission considers that rate and sets its own rate, considering its own costs to manage the system. And so the proposed rate for the members would be $2.45 per cubic meter. And then each member community has to take that rate, work it into their own budget cycle, and establish their consumption rates for their own communities. So for example, tonight's, we're considering a utility rate bylaw that factors in the commission's $2.45 rate. The 2025 expenses for the commission, this pie chart shows over 3/4 of it is purchasing water from Red Deer. That's the business the commission's in. It just buys water and sells it to the members and owns a pipeline in between. So 3/4 of the cost of the commission are buying water from Red Deer. $1.3 million of its annual expenses, or 17% of the budget, is debt payments on the original line. That debt will be paid off in 2031. Until then, we have a debt payment to make. We put a modest amount in reserves now. The commission's intention is to increase its reserve contributions significantly once that debt is paid off, and then that amount would go towards future replacement costs of the system. And then there's system operations and management costs that are factored into the rate. So all of these things just drive an increase from Red Deer's to the members' rate. So how does the commission make its money? Almost entirely from selling water to its members. 97% of its sales are to its member communities. There's a small amount, 2% of its revenues are in interest on money in the bank. There is a county contribution. They have a kind of a two-tiered payment system that generates about $100,000 to the commission, and then we have some other revenue through crossing agreements and things like that that comes into the commission's revenue. So the water line extension that is being considered is originally between the Alberta and Ermineskin Cree Nation. The Alberta has agreed to provide a potable water system to Ermineskin, which is the kind of the northmost reserve within this chart here. As indicated earlier, there's 4 Maskwacis First Nations, and Ermineskin is the first one that's going to be connecting to this new extended system. Alberta is going to be fully funding this water line extension, and a part of the agreement between Alberta and Ermineskin is they have to have access to 890,000 cubic meters of water annually to meet the ECN's needs. And the commission through the province has been tasked with extending the system up to the nation, supplying water to the nation at the designated delivery point, and then providing the capacity to serve all 4 First Nations through that pipeline. So in other words, this is a pipeline that's not just for one nation. It'll provide the capacity for all 4. They'll be the first to connect would be Ermineskin. What's shown on the drawing or on the map here are several conceptual alignments that were studied by our engineers looking at various routing for that pipeline. But I'll call back to the original slide showing the commission system. In reality, it's going to be some combination of these alignments. It'll be jagged. It won't be one of these exactly. It'll be some version of them as the design progresses. And so right now, where we ended the last system development timeline was on the far left with water on. So as we continue forward from 2006, in 2019, the Alberta announced the expansion of the system. The commission completed a feasibility study studying alignments and other engineering factors that go into doing that work. In 2021, the commission board endorsed full membership of the Urban Skin Cree Nation onto the board as being a voting member once the line is installed and operational. Then in 2023, the commission and the province entered into a grant agreement for $38.9 million to fund this extension. In 2024, we updated the updated the feasibility study and provided some more analysis on the alignments. And then we've recently secured a project management team to manage the day-to-day aspects of this project. And so that's where we are right today, currently. Looking to the future, these timelines are fairly broad, and I would say I would stress that qualifying statement I have on the bottom of that slide to allow for a fair and liberal interpretation of the schedule. This has been a complex project in terms of setting a schedule and sticking to it, just because of the evolving nature of various players in the space. But high level, looking at 24, 25, the commission and the Urban Skin Cree Nation will sign an MOU, looking at updating our membership agreements in 25, 26. Anticipating design, tender, and construction somewhere in 25 to 29, with water on perhaps the end of the decade or the start of the next decade. So some of the project objectives that we're trying to achieve through this project are to extend the system to ECN's reserve boundary, and it must be funded 100% through grants. That's the commitment the province made, and so that's the project objective. We want to use the project to strengthen the commission's operations and financial foundation and secure a reliable long-term drinking water supply for all current and future members. We want to enhance the commission's reputation as a trusted regional partner by prioritizing strong governance, exemplary communication, and accountability for public funds. And regularly and proactively reach out to stakeholders to collect feedback and identify potential solutions on issues of importance to them that can be achieved through the project. A presentation like this has been done. I also went to the town of Ponoka's council and gave them the same presentation, and as a demonstration as well of the communication and the commitment that the commission has to the region. And above all, just want to highlight below the project objectives there that forming lasting and meaningful economic and social partnerships with ECN and other future members communities is integral to any success the project will achieve over the coming decades and beyond. Building a pipeline and putting water through it is actually the easiest part. It's building a relationship with a new member that's going to outlast the short-term duration that it takes to build the pipeline. And so that's a key factor in measuring the success of this project is how close we can get to having those meaningful relationships with new members. So I just want to say thank you. Lacombe has been involved in the commission for long time. Council's already aware, but the public may not be aware that Lacombe has been the manager and the operator of this commission system since its inception, and the commission has continually vested its confidence back in the city of Lacombe as a managing partner. And so thank you, council, for continuing to trust administration in doing that work and for being a part of the commission overall. That's my presentation, Mayor Creasy.
Appreciate that, Director Thompson. One question, Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. You're saying that Alberta will fund this pipeline to Maskwacis. Alberta, which department? Because why wouldn't that be a federal funding? Like, I'm just curious that it's Alberta that's funding it.
So the department that the funding source comes from is Transportation and Economic Corridors. That's a good question for Alberta, I guess, in terms of the agreement between the nation and Alberta. Yeah.
That also, just so you know, that figure that was outlined in there, I think is low as a fair assessment. Yes, it's outdated, I was going to say. Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. With a new partner coming online, there likely won't be any savings or cost benefit to the other groups on this to maintain rising costs on the water utility?
So the capital costs would be covered. Certainly with additional water sales generates additional revenue that will help to offset some of the additional costs to operate the line. But I think that the cost of the operating costs certainly have to go up with adding, you know, not necessarily doubling the length of the line, but certainly doing that. But the benefits that I think that can come back to regional members are through the project would be through using this project as a say a launching point to do more emergency management planning, and how can we use this project to advance or reduce our risk in case of, say, a water line goes down. So maybe we can, some of the grant funding, the eligibility of the grant funding could help support regional planning, could help support some of the we have some valving issues on the main line that could help, you know, use this project as a way to replace some valves that we have on the main line that are inoperational. And so we're looking for ways to, you know, return that kind of direct value back to the existing members, because you're right, with the expanded line, it's going to increase our operational costs, and one way or the other, it means a slightly higher rate for everyone else.
Director Thompson, as a chair, you and I had an opportunity to meet with, I believe it was 24 or 5 water and wastewater commissions from across the province, out of a total of 39, is it? Anyway, a significant number of them across the province. The reason I mention that is if you happen to recall some of the prices per meter of water, quite often we hear that this line, specifically Lacombe, for whatever reason, has got the highest water bills in Earth. You would think the way that some of the customers talk, and I'm not suggesting that they do not have a significant cost. However, there was commissions there that had numbers that were substantially different. And I'm not saying that the commission sells water directly to individual residences and companies, but not unlike the cost of water is a significant factor in the pricing for them. The cost of that supplied water to the municipalities and the counties that it serves is a significant cost to the water that is passed on to the end user. So just to give us some context, there was a couple there that kind of stuck out in my mind. I'm just wondering if you recall what those were on a per meter basis.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. So the commission's proposing to, in its utility bylaw, a $2.45 per cubic meter rate. There were folks at the regional water wastewater forum that you're speaking to that cited cubic meter rates in $6-7 range as well. And so I think those are probably anomalies, but certainly in certain areas of the province, the cost of water is very, very expensive.
Thank you. Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. And so, yeah, I want to apologize. I wasn't trying to say there is no benefit to this system. And I believe, yeah, as you mentioned, there are cost increases, no kind of regardless. My belief is, or my understanding is we didn't have a choice to continue using our own municipal water regardless. And this is our only option for water as well, if that's correct.
Yes, it's certainly been a year or two, but I think there was certainly a choice. There just wasn't enough supply with the well system the way that it was. Certainly the technology was there to treat it, and the distribution system is similar. It was simply a supply issue. We didn't really get a motion for. Nope. You too. No other questions for Director Thompson? Appreciate that presentation. Senior Development Officer Kirk, said in my notes here that you're going to be handing a request for decision. Item 6.1 on the office and retail sales in the light industrial district. Whenever you've had an opportunity to get your paperwork in order there, reminder to use the microphone, and whenever you're ready to go, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. All right, so the purpose of this report is to seek council's direction on amending the land use bylaw to allow office and retail sales in the light industrial district as a principal land use. So under the analysis, Lacombe has recently received inquiries and applications seeking land use bylaw amendments to allow for a variety of non-industrial land uses in our industrial districts. So while these applications have been considered individually as site-specific exceptions, there may be interest in allowing office and retail sales in the light industrial district as a permitted or discretionary use. So the purpose of the light industrial district is to provide an area for a wide variety of light and other service-related industrial activities that do not create a nuisance beyond the property boundary. A review of Lacombe's municipal comparators indicates that there is a variety of approaches to allowing mixed uses in our industrial areas, and Appendix A provides this research. Appendix B of the report provides a list of the permitted uses and the discretionary uses within the I-1 district, as well as the number of commercial and industrial zoned lots within the city. Standalone office and retail sale uses could be considered as additions to the list of permitted and discretionary uses. Land use bylaw definitions. So an office provides professional, management, administrative, consulting, and financial services. It does not include a medical office. And for retail sales, it includes, but it is not limited to, the rental or retail sale of groceries, household goods, clothes, pharmaceutical and personal care items, and does not include cannabis retail sales. So districts that allow offices, currently in industrial districts, an office may only operate as an accessory use to the principal use taking place from the lands. So meaning an office is only allowed if it's subordinate or secondary to the main use taking place. Districts that allow retail sales, so similar to offices, retail sales is only allowed as an accessory use in the light industrial district if it is subordinate or secondary to the main use taking place. So the below chart does show how many commercial and industrial lots the city of Lacombe has. There's 421 commercial lots and 215 industrial lots. This chart is included in Appendix B, where it shows the breakdown of the stat plans and a land use bylaw. So comparator research summary, office uses. Fort Saskatchewan is our only comparator municipality that allows for a standalone office in their industrial district. 4 of the municipalities, being Beaumont, Cochrane, High River, and Stony Plain, they do allow offices. However, it's in a specialized business industrial district. No other comparators allow offices within their industrial district. For retail sales, out of the 11 municipalities researched, 6 of them allow retail sales as principal uses, that being Beaumont, Cochrane, Fort Saskatchewan, High River, Strathmore, and Wetaskiwin. And the remaining 5 do not allow standalone retail sales in their industrial districts. Based on the comparator research, the city of Lacombe may wish to consider the creation of a new business industrial district. So this would allow for developments that would include lighter industrial uses, such as offices and retail sales. It would include higher design guidelines, landscaping standards, and facade treatments, and provide larger parcel sizes to accommodate large structures and/or storage yards. So if there is an interest, administration could complete additional research and prepare a proposed land use bylaw amendment to bring forward to council in the first half of 2025. Advantages and disadvantages. So with any change to the land use bylaw, there are potential advantages and disadvantages to allowing standalone office and retail sales in the industrial district. If council directs administration to proceed with the amendments, an enhanced public engagement effort is proposed and would take place prior to first reading. So this would be an open house, advertising, and letters to the affected properties. All landowners, tenants, commercial property owners, and the public would have the opportunity to provide comments and suggestions. Specific concerns may be raised, additional uses may be proposed by the public, as well as input regarding general regulations for each use in the light industrial district and input on the overall vision or future of the light industrial district. And administration would summarize any input that we received into a what we heard report, which would also share the input and respond to any of the questions. So it is recommended that council directs administration to prepare land use bylaw amendments allowing office and retail sales in the light industrial district to be presented to council's consideration in the first half of 2025, and that council directs administration to conduct a public engagement strategy in early 2025 to gather feedback, including an open house, website updates, newspaper advertisements, and mailouts to the property owners in the I-1 district and the commercial districts. And alternatively, if council wishes to pursue not pursue with the public engagement strategy, council can move forward with motion 1 only. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Officer Kirk. On topic, we have lots of ladies here. I don't see the list, so I'm going to start with Councilor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I very much look forward to this. I think we need to be supportive in the businesses that so wish to choose, that don't always have the options to find the perfect location. And I'm always willing to try to be amicable for setting them up to succeed. So I'll go ahead and make the motion that council directs administration to prepare land use bylaw amendments allowing office and retail sales in the light industrial district to be presented for council's consideration in the first half of 2025.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Thank you for the presentation. I think this has come from the public already, and people wanting to be in the industrial area. So I think it is something we need to address, and I agree with Councillor Ross that it's maybe overdue for us to look at an amendment to this bylaw to allow for those kinds of, retail, maybe not all retail. I'm not sure what fits in there perfectly, but I'd be looking forward to the public hearings and finding out what the public wants out there.
The next one.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, I too would support this. In my line of work, I don't, as many if you know, I'm involved in the real estate business, however, not in the commercial sector. However, there are a great many commercial realtors who have come to me with clients that want to come to Lacombe, but unfortunately, there's not enough large office space or large retail space available in our current commercial zones. And they are prepared to perhaps build in our light industrial, but of course that's not allowed at the moment. And I think it would speed up the process immeasurably if we had a business district as you describe, or at least if it's a discretionary use. So I look forward to seeing what we come up with here in early 2025 to address the need that's out there. And as Councillor Ross alluded to, we want to be open for business, and we always say that we are. So let's make some steps to do that. Thank you.
Very few of them necessarily fall under light industrial per se. We have everything from childcare to lots of retail sales in there now. And I think that we need to recognize that obviously there's a far greater demand for that than there is strictly for light industrial on its own. And I look forward to seeing this come back to us in one form or another and be discussed and hopefully approved early in 2025. Anyone else? Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, I think it's unique timing. We have this, and then our next one, we have municipal development plan status review, and I feel like they kind of tie in together. And so I think it's important that we adhere to the planning that we have, but to provide consistent vision that aligns with best practices. However, we must be flexible and able to react to the changing needs I think it's been mentioned a couple times. We have had several people bring this forward to us now, and I'm glad that we are going to maybe move forward here with this. And so I think it's important to our community and business owners to address their concerns and the needs to continue growing our commercial and industrial districts. Thank you.
Thank you. It seems to be everyone. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Almost like it was Christmas time or something. Councillor Ross, you brought forward the motion, I believe. Just for clarity. Legislative Coordinator Bellabona, I'll have you read that back to us so everyone knows the exact wording.
Hey, Mayor Creasy, the motion on the floor is that council directs administration to prepare land use bylaw amendments allowing office and retail sales in the light industrial district to be presented for council's consideration in the first half of 2025.
Appreciate that. Last opportunity for input. Very good. Please go ahead and vote. And that is supported unanimously, I believe it was. The next item up is, thank you for that reminder, was I think an expectation or hope for an additional one, and Councillor Dallas.
Thank you. I'll put forward the second motion that council directs administration to conduct a public engagement strategy in early 2025 to gather feedback, including an open house, website updates, newspaper advertisements, and mailouts to property owners in the light industrial I1 and commercial districts.
Thank you. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I was going to make that motion, but I got beat to it. I do want to speak to this one just briefly. I think this one is particularly important. I appreciate that we're taking our time to make this possible change because it is a fairly big difference. And then also, I just want to be really sure that we're, not creating a scarcity now of light industrial by suddenly making this change. I also want to identify possible consequences on existing areas that do have office space, but now there'll be a whole lot more options, which is probably great. But I just want to make sure that we're really good, that we've thought about all the consequences, have given businesses the opportunity to give that back to us. So I do really appreciate this second motion. Thank you.
No one else? Please go ahead and vote. And similarly, that one is accepted unanimously, or endorsed rather. Acting Director Hackett. Oh, there, I'm sorry, there. I'm looking back in the gallery. There you are right there. Thank you. Item 6.2, the Municipal Development Plan Status Performance Review. I was just corrected in your title. I've got in my notes here, Acting Director, and I understand that the formal process has been completed and you are in fact our new Director. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Sorry for misrepresenting your position.
Thank you. Well, good evening, Mayor Creasy and members of council. I am pleased tonight to provide you with an update on the Municipal Development Plan Status Performance Review work undertaken over the last several months. Parkland Community Planning Services, represented tonight by Ken White, Director, and Reza Asadi, Planner, worked with the Cross-Department Administrative Steering Committee here at City Hall to review the Municipal Development Plan's performance over the time since it was adopted in 2015. Their full report is found in tonight's agenda, and they're here to present their findings. But just before I turn it over to them, I will highlight the key points. The findings indicate that a full MDP review is not seen as necessary, but there are some incomplete actions around land inventories and tourism land uses that were identified as being beneficial to start in the new year. They also note that there has been some slow progress towards residential density and diversity targets. That's residential housing density and housing diversity targets. And found that finding data for consistent measurement of MDP goals is a bit of a challenge, and that it was not readily available in all cases. So based on these findings, which they will expand on, I'm sure, administration recommends 3 next steps. First, to address the data gaps, it is recommended that a strategy for data collection be developed, leveraging our existing resources. Secondly, related to housing density and housing diversity, it is recommended that administration continue to work with residential developers in our community to bring forward proposals that respond to the MDP's targets over time. And we have been moving in that direction since 2015. And third, to respond to incomplete actions around land inventories and around tourism land uses, that planning and development undertake those 2 identified actions in 2025, 2026, and bring them forward for Council's consideration. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to Mr. Asadi and Mr. White to present the report and findings in more detail. Thank you.
There we go. And it'll work something like that. Good evening. My name is Ken White. I'm the director of Parkland Planning Services, and we're really pleased tonight to present to you our review and analysis of your strategic plan. The reason this was identified in the work plan is that this is in your strategic plan as an action to evaluate the municipal development plan performance. And the document was originally approved in 2015, and it's pretty progressive and comprehensive. One of the really detailed MDPs that I've ever seen. And you are all to be commended. I've worked in planning for over 30 years and have never done a performance review of an MDP. Most councils just want to do a new one. So this is quite progressive thinking as to, well, maybe the old one isn't so bad and there are things we can improve on. So it might start a new trend in planning. I'm not sure. So with that action in the strategic plan, administration certainly wanted to measure how well the current plan is performed. And so we've done an assessment, and Reza is going to take you through the meat and potatoes. He's got a PowerPoint to take you through, and basically it was just reviewing. We pulled together what information, what data we could, and reviewed sort of a balanced assessment that was approved by council earlier in August to focus on the primary objectives and goals in the plan. And so that's what we've done. And certainly we are looking forward to moving forward with any recommendations and certainly tying in future office space and light industrial, something be contribute in the future. So as information. So with that, I'll turn it to Reza, and he can kind of take you through how it was done.
Yes, I have my USB.
Okay, Not a problem. We did. It'd be the first time we've ever had an IT issue, related issue. Thankfully, we've got an expert at the back of the room can help you out.
Failing that, I do have a hard copy.
Always good to have for a backup. And as if by magic, there it is. Appreciate that, Mr. Tomnuck. If I had to do it, we would be postponing until well into the next year.
Okay, let's first review the structure of the MDP and how it has been assessed to ensure a comprehensive evaluation. The MDP covers 14 strategic areas in evaluating the MDP. We focus on two components, actions and policies. So, okay. Our methodology involved evaluating both policies and actions. Based on these evaluations, we assess each strategic areas to answer the central project's question. Does the MDP need a review or not? So for actions, we categorize actions as either completed or not completed, and information was gathered through steering committee meetings. And for policies assessment was more challenging because we have no specific measurement index were available. And to address this, we first conduct a comprehensive review of the MDP to understand the context and rationale for the policies established in 2015. And after that, we develop a specific index for each policy and share them with the steering committee. We faced additional challenges as well, including data limitation for tracking policies. And for overcome these challenges, we collaborate with department managers, conduct brainstorm, have lots of interviews, and identify available that could be adapted for use in our measurement indexes. We gather information from various sources, including department projects, historical data, GIS records, and other relevant plans as well. And after we gather all the information and have analyzed them, we categorize policies in 3 groups. First is no progress. It means and there is no plans or actions have been implemented. There is another one, needs improvement. That means there are plans and actions in place, but they are insufficient to meet policies objectives. And in progress, that basically means there's a strong evidence that the measurement indexes are on track. So after we evaluate all actions and policies, we develop an assessment framework and for each strategy area, actually. And if actions in an area had not been completed, we recommended to done those actions. And if policies required improvement, we suggest target actions to align them with policy objectives. In areas where actions were incomplete and policies showed no progress, we recommended a review of those specific areas. The residential areas emerge as the only area requiring further review. And okay. And based on our finding, I can categorize my recommendation in 3 groups. The first is midterm review. We recommended conducting similar review near the end of the MDP timeline. to facilitate this, establishing a centralized database and monitoring system is essential. This will allow for annual evaluations and better understanding of which actions and plans should be considered each year. And the second one is policy and action alignment. Our findings show no evidence from the steering committee meetings that policies or actions in the MDP are unnecessary. So it means that MDP is in a good stand, and this indicates that the MDP provides a strong framework for the city development. The second one is about the residential area challenging. And basically it means that we don't need to complete review of the MDP, and 6 strategy areas do not require the review, but some actions need to be taken, and there are no recommendations required for 7 strategies as well. And for residential area challenges, it means that for the last few years, we have lots of changes. For example, we have COVID, we have nowadays, we have housing problems in the country. So there are many changes that maybe maybe MDP couldn't forecast all of these problems. But we think, based on our analysis, that the policy aim to increase the density in the city, and it's almost 2 areas. For the new development areas, MDP suggests that we need to target 15 units per hectare. And for the overall of the city, we need to 35% single family housing requirement. And the city has a demand to increase the density, but nowadays we didn't have the target. So for the residential area, we suggest to have a deep analysis about it, and we think we need to answer some further questions if we want to review the residential area. It's that what was the average density of the city in 2015? We have data limitation for that. And how does this density compare to similar cities? We say, okay, if 15 units per hectare is a good target, or no, it's high density compared to other cities or not. But specific actions have been taken regarding these policies. And additionally, there are some general recommendations: create a database to track the progress, and consider reviewing the performance evaluation of the current MDP before initiating studies for a new MDP at the end of the timeline. And I think, yes, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Could I get you to back up one slide there? That one on the second, back ahead. On the second A, analysis indicates there is significant demand for increased density in Lacombe. Significant demand by whom?
We analyzed the development permits by year from 2015 to 2023, and we make a bar chart for seeing the trends that have in past 5 years, I think, or about 10 years. So we see that there is a demand. It is increasing in multifamily demand for Lacombe City. For example, we have a redevelopment area in downtown. There is a high demand for reconstruct the old buildings, make apartments, or maybe get the better density. And that's our data that we make the analysis about the demanding on increase the densities.
Okay, so based on either owners or builders pulling permits that reflect that, that's how the demand was derived at.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any other questions or comments? Councillor Dallas?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I think, my one comment, well, I guess I have 2, is the one comment about the point you just brought up is the demand on increased density, I think is definitely developer drawn, but I also do believe that is what is needed out there. People aren't building things that they aren't going to fill. And so I think it's important that we do maintain that. We have seen a lot of localized resistance to those projects, and I have been in favor of them, but I truly believe people aren't building things that people do not want in the public, and so that's part of it. The one other item that came up in this was the inventory of lots or of what is commercial industrial availability. And I think there's been several times in meetings where we have asked if we do know what those inventory levels are, so we could make decisions on other zoning changes or discretionary uses. And so I think that is nice that it's highlighted here, and hopefully we can move forward with that and find a way to do that to help us make better decisions in the future for these items. So, thank you.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I thought Councillor Dallas was going to beat me to it this time again, but I'd like to move that Council direct administration to proceed with the recommended actions presented for responding to the findings of a municipal development plan status performance review report. And I do want to say that I do really appreciate that we did do a review of that plan. It is very foundational to the operations of this community. It is something that we rely on heavily for all sorts of decisions. So I do appreciate that we did do a review and sort of, it's 10 years old, see how we're doing.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I too like hearing that we are maybe the cutting edge and the new way of approaching our development plans. That's neat to hear. But I was curious about these three actions that administration is recommending. Should there be a timeline attached to any of them, or do we just send you off and hope we get something back at some point? I don't know. We don't always attach a timeline, but I'm just curious if that might be helpful to have some time attached.
Mayor Creasy, through to Councillor Hoekstra. Of the three actions, there's a timeline for undertaking the two incomplete on the inventory and the tourism, potential tourism amendments in 2025, 2026, depending how long that might take. The second action is to continue to work with the local development community, so that would be ongoing. So really it is the action around developing a data collection strategy, which I guess in my sense and in working with Parkland Community Planning, it needs to start happening immediately to begin to collect that data, particularly as we're hitting the end of the year and we have, for example, our building permit numbers, but we need to be collecting more than just development permits. So in answer to that question, I think I saw them either occurring immediately or in the case of the two incomplete actions in 2025 into 2026.
Thank you. Anyone else? We do have a motion before us then. Do I need it reread or no? We're good. Please go ahead and vote. Mine lights up and doesn't do anything. That time it worked. Very good. It is endorsed unanimously. Appreciate that, Director Hackett.
Thank you.
Director Thompson, you've got item 6.3, bylaw 450.3, the proposed utility rates, second and third reading, so you can outline all the good news, how our utilities are going down.
Well, they're financially stable. But thanks, Mayor Creasy. Before council is consideration for second and third reading of bylaw 450.3, which is an amendment to the utility bylaw. The bylaw amendment proposes two main changes. One, that it replaces the rate schedule in the existing bylaw with an updated rate schedule to align with the adopted 2025 operating budget for the utilities. It also sets reporting requirements for non-residential customers who use solid waste private collections contractors. With respect to the utility rates, the attached bylaw outlines the replaced schedule, but it also includes, sorry, not the bylaw, but the attached document on the report includes a list or a table of typical monthly utility bill estimates to provide some context on the impact of the rate changes to various typical customers. So family of 6, family of 4, grocery store, restaurant, etc. With respect to the solid waste contractors, we have, for the large part, our system of establishing the disposal fee for solid waste contractors has been through goodwill and the voluntary compliance of contractors and customers, where they're supplying us with information so that we can put them in the right disposal tier for solid waste. Right? Recall a part of introducing the new rate model was establishing a disposal fee for non-residential, or for all customers, but then on the non-residential side, having a disposal fee broken down into volumetric tiers. And so we've asked for information, and most customers are giving it to us, or most collectors are giving it to us. And so that's really good. And I want to thank those customers and those contractors who are doing that. We have found that there are some customers who have refused to do that, citing privacy concerns and just, if I don't have to, why would I? And so we've looked into that, and we got an opinion, legal opinion on that, and confirmed that if it's required by utility municipal bylaw to collect this type of information, that it in fact means it's not protected information. It's necessary to set the rate for the utility, and so therefore it's information that the customer, if council deems it important through the bylaw, by adopting this bylaw, then it must be supplied. And so what we're doing here is we're requiring the non-residential private waste collectors to provide the disposal volume information that we need to ensure that they're in the right rate tier, and then make it a requirement to that if they don't provide that information, that we have the ability to assign the highest tier to those customers who don't, as a disincentive to not provide it. So that's a change to the utility bylaw, and it adds some regulatory teeth to the current system where there currently it lacks those teeth. So council and mayor, those are the two major changes to the utility bylaw the administration is proposing tonight for your consideration.
Thanks, Director Thompson. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Thank you for the report here and just updating us on what we're going to be doing. I really believe this change for the commercial side is a positive one, so that the rest of us aren't subsidizing those customers. They'll be paying their way. So I think that's a positive change.
So I think there's been a fair bit of confusion around why those charges occurred, and I think at one point in time they weren't necessary because the city of Lacombe was responsible for the transportation of all waste, regardless of its origin, residential or commercial, industrial. And when the council of the day, some 12 or 14 years ago, I think it was, allowed for fair competition, which I think is a good thing in my opinion, just kind of slipped through the cracks that they weren't really being charged the full amount. And while it's expected that the city can certainly compete on a fair basis, it was not fair when the people of Lacombe are paying a larger portion of those fees, and it's being omitted by our heavier users. So I look forward to this being implemented. Not going to be really popular with some businesses. However, I think it is more more realistic distribution of the true costs of that service. And I think we are well served. So, and certainly they have the option of continuing their transport with a private contractor or using that of the city, whichever they prefer. And I think initially there was a lot of people that felt like they were being charged twice, when in fact that's not really the case. So I don't necessarily like the fall this may cause, but I think it's a fair route to go. Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, my comments started just around the solid waste, and I think this is a good move that there was possibly some third-party contractors that were able to take advantage of the system by not having to declare their weights, or possibly bring in waste from other regions, and were able to take advantage of our system that our local community was paying for. And so I fully support this, and I'll make the first motion that council gives second reading to bylaw 450.3.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question for clarification. So by default, without making any changes, what's presented in the memo with the paper fee would then be that 155 as a default, just is in Schedule B, it's zeroed out. But I'm assuming that it's intended to mean that it would be then 155 without direction otherwise.
Thanks for the opportunity to comment on that paper fee. It did come up in one of the previous council meetings recently, so we did add that section to the report that highlighted paper fees across our comparators, and $1.55 was the median of those who do charge. That is being provided for information, so unless an amendment to the bylaw is being made to introduce that, the current bylaw reflects the paper fee at $0, and so that's the default right now.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you for that clarification. I would so like to make that amendment then, that we do add in $1.55 paper utility fee to Schedule B.
Gio Gowdy, do we need to consider that item separately and first then, or what would be the appropriate?
Yes, I think that should be considered as an amendment to, or an amendment, potential amendment to the second reading. So I would deal with it first.
Good, that's what I thought too, but I wanted to be certain. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just a quick question. What's the percentage of people that aren't getting paper? Do we know?
We don't know, unless Director Thompson does, but I don't think we have looked at that.
You haven't looked at it. We don't know what the percentage is. It could, a guess would be 60%, 50%.
Director Thompson? It's a great guess. About 3,400 utility bills monthly is what we paper out of 5,500 or so.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to charge 50% of our customers $1.55. I don't like it.
Only if they choose not to get on the electronic version, I guess. But they have fair observation. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just to speak in support of my amendment, yeah, you're covering the cost of, mailing it out, all that administration, all that folding, all that, whatever the case may be. there's so many bills these days that we get. When's the last time you got a paper bill in the mail? Like I never get paper bills in the mail anymore. And this is an area that we could save some money. If people really insist on having it in a paper copy, then I guess they pay for the privilege. And $1.55 is not going to break the bank, but it is reflective of our costs. So that's why I proposed it.
Can I speak to that?
Sure, your light's on and everything. Go ahead, Councillor
Thank
Pelican.
you. I would hope that those costs would have been covered off in our fees already. I certainly would think that our monthly fee would cover that expense, or would have been considered when that fee was made. So I think this additional fee is unfair and not needed. If you want electronic, maybe give the person that gets electronic bills a break, but don't add an additional cost onto these bills.
Any other comments? Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you. Just as it is my amendment, I guess I'm usually the one that gets to speak last. I would flip that argument actually and say that people are subsidizing the fact that it's convenient for people to get the mail. So that would be my take on that.
So in a break with protocol, we had an individual with their hand up in the gallery who was just dying to ask a question. As long as it's brief, I will entertain it.
Or there's things that are happening out, I'll get on paper. I don't have Facebook, or you guys have put the postings on. Like usually for one, I look at it. And I usually put in my collection, in my filing. So I would say give people attention, like a break, because there's no. But I would consider. Okay.
We appreciate that feedback. Is the community information included in the electronic version? CAO Gowdy?
No, it is not.
Would that be a difficult thing to implement?
Yes, it has proven very difficult.
Mhm.
We have looked at it before. It is not possible under our current system.
Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I was going to speak on behalf of the seniors in our community who may not be savvy or willing to do things online, and I'd rather that they were not charged another $1.55 for just doing things as they typically did it.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I've come from in the past of volunteering that a lot of groups and organizations that volunteer in this community for to put on activities utilize the mail out to put their brochures, trifolds in to get to the seniors and, or the people that are not as electronically orientated. So in that, it also has saved the groups and organizations significant amount of postage. In Lacombe Days, for example, we would save $800 approximately in postage if it went into the mail outs. So I'm assuming that I'm not just speaking on behalf of one organization. I'm sure many others have taken advantage of the mail outs to for these staff that have contributed their time, not only to, yes, putting in the paper into the envelope, but they have in essence, they've supported other groups and organizations that put on events in the city. So I think there is, some other value to it.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Casey. I don't know. I was just doing some rough math based on what we heard here, and 3,400 people at $1.55 for 12 months is $63,000. My guess is that our costs for mailing these out are not going to go down in the very near future. And so I think, yeah, we can certainly avoid this now and we can increase utility rates again next year by more, or we can do this to limit that. So I think, this argument can go either way, and we can certainly investigate better options for communication with the public. And so I think that's something we can take away from this regardless. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that number actually equates fairly well to the actual cost of the mail out portion with the postage one, not around $5,500 a month, if memory serves me correct, somewhere in there. So $3,400 at $1.55 works out relatively close. And then there is other costs as far as purchasing paper, envelopes, photocopier time, all that good stuff. So $1.55 is extremely reasonable for this, in my opinion. I've always been a believer in user pay, and I think rather than charge each and every user an additional $1.55 or $2 or whatever, and then remove it for ones that don't receive it, which is the electronic version, is a little ridiculous. So I in fact do endorse the additional fee, which is in fact only a portion of the actual cost. Hopefully for some it's incentive to move on to the electronic version, because while I have no doubt that there are many people in our community that do appreciate receiving that additional information, there is a far greater number that file them immediately and they're never opened, which is unfortunate. So for that reason, I am for not necessarily for additional costs, but I think it's a realistic and a relatively inexpensive fee. Anyone else? I think we have that item on our voting machines. Please go ahead and vote. Either way this goes, we've saved a little money with the strike. So that is narrowly defeated by a margin of 4-3. 4 was Councillors Dallas, Hibbs, and Creasy, and the remainder against. Thanks, everyone. So moving on to the main motion for second reading of bylaw 450.3, the 2025 utility rates is up now, and that was brought forward by Councillor Dallas. I think it's only appropriate that all inquiries about increases in utilities be forwarded to Councillor Dallas, and just kidding, of course. Is there any additional input on proposed second reading? Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously in favor. I was just curious. I think last time we had spoke about the implications of postponing third and final reading to, which would amount to the next calendar year. Director Thompson, is that problematic?
It's not problematic in terms of billing. Our recommendation tonight is to proceed to third reading. Does require a unanimous vote to do so tonight, but should council wish to return this item in January, insofar as it's passed prior to month end, then we can make the adjustments in our system for the January billing cycle.
Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra.
I'd like to make that motion that council resolves to consider the third reading of bylaw 450.3 at the same meeting as second reading.
Thank you. Anybody have anything to say on that item? expect so, but please go ahead and vote. Very good. That is unanimous. Therefore, have the option of considering third reading at the same meeting as second. Councillor Conick.
I would so move that council gives third reading to bylaw 450.3.
Thank you. Anyone? Please go ahead and vote. And that is passed unanimously as well. Thanks, everyone. We do have 3 in-camera items. But before we do those, I will just read out our next meetings. We do have one remaining this year for a committee of the whole meeting here in Chambers at 5:30 on Monday, December the 16th. And then for 2025, our first meeting for a regular meeting of council is on January the 13th, 5:30 here in Chambers, followed by another one on Monday, January 27th, same time and place. So that is your next 3 meetings for your calendars. And unless I'm mistaken, I think that is all the regular business that we have for this evening. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'd like to make a motion that we move in camera.
Very good. It is precisely 7 p.m. Please go ahead and vote. Those in favor unanimously, whenever we get the indication from